Okay, I've got a lot of mixed feelings and lots of alarm bells going off. Hey, this is the Sword in the Pen Reflections. It is my casual alternative to the formal channel, The Sword in the Pen, link up there. So for those of you who are new to the channel, I am a book editor, a freelance book editor, and what I've been doing is taking a book series that I have never read and a television series that I have never seen, and I'm consuming them simultaneously and then making comparisons as we go, kind of looking at the things that one maybe did better than the other, or things that I maybe would have done entirely differently. I don't speak so good, but I write okay. But anyway, you get the idea, and we're looking at Wheel of Time. Season 1 of episode 1 of the Amazon series covers about the first 10 chapters of The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing I want to touch on are the differences. I saw lots of areas where there were things very different from in the book, and I'm not sure what they're trying to do with it in the series, in the show. So the first thing is the magic. Now, in the very beginning of episode 1, we are told that men corrupted the one power. And my impression from the book was that it wasn't that men corrupted it so much as men, when they use it, go mad. I mean, even as somebody who has never read the Wheel of Time series for years, we're talking 25 years, I have been told this is a really interesting magic system because men can't use it because it drives them insane. But the first thing that they said in the show is that men have corrupted it. So I thought that's a pretty big fundamental change. And I don't know if maybe that's something that is revealed later on in the books and just people tell you this when you're starting out. Like, oh, it'll be a big surprise when they get to this part and they find out that men are actually the ones making the magic bad. But it was very clear from not only Moraine's prologue in the very beginning of episode 1, but also from this lady in red, who I think is an Aes Sedai woman as well, basically saying that men make it filthy. So it's not the magic that is affecting men, it is men who are affecting the magic. Now, the second major change, and this is part of the world building more than the magic, but it is a magical element. There is a prophecy that there will be one who can stand up and stop the Dark One from destroying everything, right? And this one person might be a man or a woman. And I was pretty dang sure that it was just that it was a man. And the thing that made it so specifically male is that this is a man who can wield the magic without going mad. And that was like why it's a man. Again, I'm going, why are they doing this? Are they changing what's going to happen? And so my thought is maybe they're trying to say that everybody thinks that men corrupt the magic and everybody thinks that it could be a man or a woman. But the truth is that it's magic that corrupts the men and the one will be a man for sure. But this is like a revelation we won't get until later in the story. Like they're adding an extra mystery in the show that wasn't existing in the book, which is actually kind of a fun thing to do, but I that's like, I hope that they're going to do that because then they will be honoring the world that Robert Jordan set up. If they don't do that, I could see major backlash from the fans who loved this particular element of this world, because it's basically like saying, well, we're going to do the Wheel of Time, but it's not going to be the Wheel of Time. It's going to be something different that was heavily inspired by the Wheel of Time. So then why call it the Wheel of Time? Now, as far as prologues go, I would say that the show actually did a better job. I didn't think it was the best prologue in the world. It was kind of cliche, but it was so short it didn't bug me. You know, she got the essentials of the information out. I didn't necessarily think that the essentials that were revealed were in line with what I believed was set up in the books, and that's definitely a concern, but anyway, just as far as prologues go, it's nice to spend a very short amount of time getting just the brief bit of info out. I did, however, find it ridiculously cliche that it immediately cuts from that to a chase scene. I hate this filmmaking trope. I just hate it. It's like, you're gonna set up this world and then immediately cut to a chase scene. And usually it's a chase scene with the hero, right? The hero is running after something and it's supposed to be, look how lively and, and youthful he is. And in this case, that's not what it was, but it was still the same thing. You come into a chase scene right in the middle of it. You have no idea what's going on. And what did we get revealed? Well, these ladies in red seem to be evil. Moraine is kind of watching what they're doing and then says, oh, they had the wrong person. And then she takes off looking for the right person. Another really big difference is what I am assuming are the gender roles. So my understanding in the books, and now remember, right now I'm on chapter 16, and my impression is that men and women are equal as far as their roles in society. I mean, I didn't really see this huge difference between the two of them. They have different roles, yes, but nobody was more important than the other. And in the show, it really does seem like men are looked down on. So you have Moraine's monologue at the beginning talking about the men think that they could control the arrogance. And then later you have the lady in red, who is clearly a villain. I mean, my gosh, her dialogue was so cliche super villain, the mustache twirling super villain. You should be thanking me for killing you, essentially, or whatever. I don't know if she killed him, but you get the idea. It was a very villainy sort of chunk of dialogue. And later throughout the show, you kind of see that anytime that there is something going on, it's the women who are stepping up and taking charge, or the men want to do something and the women are like, no, we're not going to do that. Like there was a scene I remember in the inn. It was the dad wanted to come and welcome the daughter or something, like, congratulations, you're okay. And the daughter wanted to go do something or whatever. And the dad was like, yeah, let's go do this. But then I think the mom, maybe it was the mom or it was somebody else, was like, no, we're not doing that. We're doing this. And I'm just getting very strong vibes so far that men are kind of looked down on. And later we'll discuss a scene that happened with the Trollix that really amplified that idea that men are not as powerful as women in any respect. So that's, to me, a pretty big change, unless it just hasn't been revealed yet in the book. But I mean, I'm 16 chapters in, and I was like, I don't think that the men were like this in the book. So the next biggest difference is that we are not just in Rand's head. In the book, it's only Rand's head so far in the first 16 chapters. That's where I am at, right? And in the show, it looks like they are following all of the possible dragons, right? There's Egwene, Rand, Perrin, and Mat, even though it was only Rand, Mat, and Perrin in the books. But anyway, this is what the show is doing. This can be an advantage, especially if you want the audience to constantly be wondering who the dragon is going to be. Because as a reader, it's very obvious to me that Rand is the dragon. When I'm reading the story, I'm going, he's it. Unless they're doing some sort of a bait and switch, but I doubt that. It's not a very interesting perspective to not be in the Chosen One's head, unless it is the person who is in control of the Chosen One at some point. Like Samwise Gamgee in The Lord of the Rings. We have from his perspective a lot of the ending, because he is the one who gets Frodo to the volcano, Mordor. Mount Doom. I have been there. I have been to New Zealand. I have climbed partly up Mount Doom. Anyway, we're in these different perspectives, and I think that could be a really good choice for the Amazon Prime show to do, is to keep the audience guessing, especially if in the book series we know the backstories of all of these other characters. So it's sort of like the writers have gone ahead and gleaned what they can from, we know that this character had this life growing up and this struggle that we never mentioned in the book until, book 4 or 5 or whatever. And we're just going to have it be presented now. So if all of these things are accurate to what they are like in the book, then they did a great job. It's very interesting, but I happen to know that the characters are much more innocent in the book than they are in the show, and I will get into that. But so I highly doubt that everything that we're seeing is stuff that has happened in the book series. So it's a big warning bell for people who are fans of the series that we are not only changing the world and the story, we are now changing the characters as well. So again, it's like, why call it the Wheel of Time if it's not going to be the Wheel of Time? Before we continue, please consider liking and subscribing. It's totally free for you. And for me, it might actually bring in some money on all the commercials that they keep putting on my videos. Anyway, let's get back to it. But okay, so the characters are less innocent. And obviously you've got one of them is married, one of them has a gambling addiction, and he's a chronic, what do you call it when you're a thief? Kleptomania? He's a thief. And then Egwene is sacrificing love for a career, and then Rand is having love lost. And also Rand and Egwene are having sex rather openly. I mean, they have sex in the main hall of the inn, like in the main area. I was kind of shocked, going, what if somebody who's in one of the rooms upstairs walks down and finds you guys here? So anyway, that is not the way that it is in the book. They are all young and naive and innocent. And I imagine that it follows the hero's journey where we see them grow into adults. So whatever journeys they go on in the future, we're going to see their personalities and their idea of wisdom and where the trajectory of their lives go based on the choices that they make. But here they're starting out as already seasoned characters. So it's going to be a weird journey, I think. And I would be quite upset if I was a huge fan of the series, of the books, to see that they've done this and go, well, now we've got a weird thing going on with Rand and Egwene. They weren't together ever. He wanted to be with her and then got mad at her at some point, which is what happens in the book. And I do have a question about contraception in this world. Is there like none, or have they developed something? You would think that they should have, because, you know, when you're not married and you're having sex, there's going to be children unless there's some form of contraception. Or maybe they're very infertile people, which was an interesting thing that was done in the Kingkiller Chronicles. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I got to that part in the second book and I went, what? I was thinking that with the main character, like, this is bonkers, but it made perfect sense to explain why no one was getting pregnant. Anyway, so Egwene and Rand are together, and she wants to become a wisdom. And Rand is like, but wait a minute, we were going to get married and have kids and stuff. Like, this has just been the given. And she really wants to be a wisdom where you can't get married or have kids, and you can tell that he's upset because he leaves. But then they kind of get back together, but not really together. They're like, we're standing next to each other, but we're going to separate. And by the way, it was very weird to me that Rand is comforting Egwene, who's crying because they're breaking up because she's getting what she wants. That just did not seem very realistic. He should have felt betrayed. Like, this is what the expectation has been with us being together. We were going to get married and have kids. I mean, clearly we would have discussed this since, I don't know, unless, again, the infertility thing. Because if you're having sex with someone, you're probably going to get, you're, especially if you're young and fertile, going to get pregnant. Anyway, that was just very frustrating for me. I was going, what? They didn't have this discussion before. It wasn't something that they thought, what if we get pregnant? Like, then she can't be a wisdom at all. Anyway. I mean, when it's this setting, there are certain things that I feel like need to be addressed. This was clearly something that was put in because they're trying to put sex in there so that an audience who wouldn't be interested in a show without sex and it might come and watch, people only watch Game of Thrones for the sex. I think it drew some people in, but the ones who stuck with it all the way to the end were the ones who were really interested in the characters and the story. And that's what they really should be thinking about here. Anyway, but yeah, I don't really care about them being together anyway, because, they're breaking up, because I didn't see them together. So I'm like, whatever, hurry up and break up. The main problem I see with this is that in the book, they have a similar situation like this happen later on when Egwene suddenly wants to be an Aes Sedai. So this argument is going to happen again at a later time. And if they have Rand react the way that he does in the book, which is he gets very upset and they have an argument, it's going to make him look like he is handling it less maturely, like he has become less mature as the progress of the story continues. And that's just not a good thing. So it's like setting up your main character for looking bad in the future, because he handled this very well, especially considering she's getting what she wants and she still expects you to comfort him, or, you to comfort her, whatever. Anyway, that just didn't make any logical sense to me. Am I the only one? Then we have Matt, who is, like I said, he is addicted to gambling. That's the first thing we find out about him. And then later we just find out that he is also a thief, and he steals from people in his own village, which is very unlikable. Like, these are not likable traits, but it's okay because he has very shitty parents and 2 younger sisters that he is the only one who cares about them. And all the thieving and gambling that he's doing is so that he can get nice things for his sisters. Now that's fine. That's actually a good combination. Here's the problem I'm seeing. I know from having finished the first episode and having gotten to 16 chapters in the book, and I'm assuming they're going to at least follow this part of it, Rand is about to leave the village, and his sisters and stuff will be there. So if he continues these traits beyond, that will make him very unlikable, because he won't have, oh, I have to do this for my 2 sisters anymore. So what would he be thieving and gambling for? It would just be like, oh, you were a bad person who just happened to be justifying it by doing it for your sisters. But now what are you doing it for? So this is dangerous ground for this character, and I am interested to see what they're going to do with him. I am wary though. This is like a warning bell going, watch out, because you're on loose ground. And then we have Perrin, who is apparently married, and it wasn't just me. There's something between Perrin and his wife and Egwene. Because Perrin was looking at Egwene, and somebody noticed him looking at Egwene. Who was it? I think it was Nynaeve, and was like, "Where's your wife? It's very hard work to work the forge all by yourself." And he was like, he had this look like he wanted to go and talk to Egwene, and then he goes off to his wife and is comforting her, and I heard you didn't even go to her ceremony. I love you, right? Did he cheat on his wife with Egwene at one point? That is what I'm seeing here. And this is a total betrayal of the innocence of the characters that we have in the book. So if I was a book fan, I'd be pretty ticked off here. And as far as creating characters that we, the audience, can root for in just the show alone, I would say this, again, very dangerous ground to be treading on. If that's not the case, if it's not that he and Egwene had an affair, or maybe they were dating at one time, who knows? That's okay. But if it was an affair, if they weren't having an affair, Perrin is the most sympathetic character out of all of them. All right? Let's assume that the Egwene look didn't happen. All right? If it's just he's married and, he and his wife are having some sort of marriage problems or something, and then he accidentally kills his wife, he's going to go through the rest of this story in severe emotional distress and guilt, right?
Emotional damage!
So my thing is this: if he did have an affair, and then he's about to go off on this adventure and Egwene is coming with, you've created a character who is not entirely likable from the start. So I would have been, as the editor, telling the writers, be careful, because a cheater is not very easily forgiven in stories unless you can show that it was a terrible marriage in some way. And I don't think that's where they're going, because it seemed like his wife was a hardworking person and whatever. She woke up the next morning and was trying to hold his hand and he was asleep. And anyway, it's just warning bells again. Here is the drawback of having so many characters, and I mentioned it before. We hardly spent any time with all of these people. It was a lot of information shoved at the audience all at once, and it was almost like this is too much. I would have preferred if they took some characters and had them be super innocent, and we just have maybe 2 or 3 that have their own history that they have to work out. Let's have some innocence, and then their development is shown through the rest of the series. We watch them grow. But cramming all of this at once it's too much. Now think about the first episode in Game of Thrones. All the children who are the characters we follow through the rest of the series, we hardly get any information on them, except that one of them is a girl and wishes she could do the fun stuff like the boys. One of the boys is very adventurous and he, is trying to be cool like his brothers, but he's obviously not got the skills yet. Then you have the bastard son, and then you have the son who is the oldest and, he's a very good older brother. But you get what I mean. There was very limited information about all of them. We didn't even really know that Jon Snow was the bastard son until it was explained later. Somebody, said it, and then we don't get the details of that until way further down the road. So limit it. Just show as much personality as you need to show so that in the next episode you can give a little bit more. But these are a big chunk of characters that grow, right? Anyway, that's what they should have done with this episode, because I got to the end of it and just felt like that was an overload, and I really don't care much about any of them. Let's get into some of my favorite stuff. Okay, Moraine and Lan. Now, in the books, these are the most mysterious characters, and I'm sure that everything is revealed by the end. So to have any screen time with Moraine and Lan, and they seem to be pretty close to how they were portrayed in the book so far, I'm enjoying a lot. I like the private conversations that they have that now I get to hear, because in the book we're in Rand's head and we don't hear what they say to each other in private. I like it. I actually really liked the bathing scene, because somehow it felt like there is a possibility that this is a sexual relationship between the two, but there was nothing about this bathing scene that was like overtly sexual. It was sort of like an old married couple, and they both understand and care about each other a lot. They both know each other's quirks and preferences and things, and they know how to like tease each other and prod each other. But I just liked it. And also, you know, in the book, I at this point, I don't see that it is a sexual thing. And so for them to get into the bath together, it's like there's a very deep level of comfort around each other. I liked it. I thought it was good. I really liked the practical effects of the Trollix. I think it would have been a super bad decision to make it all CGI. For me, practical effects are a major plus. I didn't think that the concept of Trollix were super unique. They do look like minotaurs to me from the Chronicles of Narnia, but that's fine. I mean, you can only get so creative with your fantasy worlds without being completely off the rails. You know, I guess you could get into like the Way of Kings creatures, you know, and Mistborn creatures if you want, but that would be huge budget to try to create these creatures from CGI. So the Trollocs are fine, and I do like that they had guys in costumes with a little enhancement maybe with CGI. The attack of the Trollocs was pretty good too. I liked the just chaos of the town. Now, you didn't get to see this scene at all in the books. You were with Rand and his father at their farm, and a couple of Trollocs break in there, and yeah, you get the idea. So to see what happened in the town, I really enjoyed, especially seeing Moraine and Lan fight. But I do have some major questions about the magic system now. So it looks like the Force, like she can throw objects with her mind, but she's also pulling in light, like pulling light to herself, but it's not always clear that this is coming from places where light exists. Like at one point it looks like it's coming from between the cracks or between the bricks of a building. And I'm going, was there light between the bricks of the building? I don't know. But anyway, then there was that. But I liked seeing this, this fight with her doing the magic and Lan protecting her, because she couldn't fight everybody right around her. She had to sometimes focus on one thing, and you know, protect your rear, protect your other rear. You get it, like that. And I liked seeing that dynamic, being able to see the fight that we only read about or heard about secondhand. You know, Rand comes into town and everybody's like, yeah, my goodness, Moraine was like throwing lightning and whatnot, or I forget what they said. Oh yeah, and then she can control lightning. So I'm not sure what the one power can do and what the rules are. I am very curious though at this point, more so than in the book, because there have been fewer hints in the book at this point. My whole thing with the idea of men seem to be less, they seem to be less important than the women as far as socially is concerned, but they also seem to be more meek, because when we see the big battle with the Trollocs, there's one time where we see random townspeople fighting the Trollocs. Like other times it's specifically, you know, we've got Moraine and Lan, and then we have Tam and, what's his name, Rand, and then we have Perrin's wife, and then Perrin and Mat kind of hiding from them. The only time that we see the townspeople really fighting the Trollocs, it's a circle of women, and one of them looked like Dawn French, I swear. But it's a circle of women who take down a Trolloc, and I was kind of going, where are the men? And it's bugged me, because we kind of see this push towards the women are going to be they're going to be the ones who are the most important in this show. And that to me says, well, what about Rand? He's our MC in the books. Like if you're going to adapt Harry Potter, and then when people go to see it in theaters, suddenly the whole movie is about Hermione or Lavender Brown instead of Harry Potter, it's not a good thing to do. I feel like this was a bad idea if this is the direction that they're going. So again, warning bells are going off, but maybe it'll change further down the road. I liked the scene with Tam and Rand. I thought that was a good scene. I actually really like the actor who plays Tam, and I'm glad he's not dead, because he doesn't die in the book and he doesn't die here. The things happened a little bit differently, but I thought that was very well done. Like, for instance, there was only one Trollix that attacked them, but in the book it seemed like there were several more. Anyway, I thought it was good. No significant changes there, except that we lost the weird hallucinations that the father seems to have at this point. And there's some pretty heavy information that's dropped in the book. So I'm wondering where they're going to deliver this information later. For instance, Tam basically tells Rand that he's not his father. That might be important later. And it wasn't revealed in the show at this point. So where will it be revealed? Because I feel like that's something that should be, especially if it's important to who the chosen one ends up being, which we're pretty sure it's going to be Rand. But you get what I mean. I would say that the build-up towards the attack of the Trollix is better in the books. There's a slow build-up of tension where you have it starts out with Rand and Tam in the forest, and Rand sees the Black Rider, but his father can't see it. And he's like, whatever, maybe I imagined it. But then he gets to town and he finds out that his friend has seen it and somebody else has seen it, and nobody else has seen it but just like a few people. And he's like, well, that's weird and suspicious. And then you have the peddler comes to town with stories of there's a war going on out there. And so it makes him very nervous, like maybe this might all be related. I don't know if actually he makes that correlation. Then he sees a weird crow that's like watching him with, fixated on him, and that's creepy. And then Moraine shows up. Like, you have this constant build up, and it was specific to our main characters. Now, in the show, they didn't have those main four get any indication that something was coming. And maybe that was the point. They wanted it to be a big shock. But the thing is that the audience got the anticipation that something was coming, because Lan finds this paisley-shaped, teardrop shape of animal bodies, and he knows that the Trollix are on their way. He says dozens of them. And that made me wonder, why didn't you tell the town, like, to protect themselves or to run away or something? You didn't warn anybody and you knew they were coming. So that was a little bit problematic for me. But anyway, something that I noticed in the show that was not mentioned at all in the book was that the peddler seemed to know that the Trollix were coming, or he seemed to not be afraid of them. He just kind of slips away. I mean, I didn't get any indication of fear on him when we saw him in the show. And in the book, at least by chapter 16 or 15 or 16, wherever I am right now, you find out that his story, he seems a little shifty. So the show did a good job of being like, there's something up with this guy, because I didn't get that at all in the book. So I liked that. Hinting a little bit about somebody possibly being off is a good way to make the audience want to know more about it. Whereas if you don't show anything at all, and then later you reveal, aha, the peddler is shifty, you're kind of going, the who? So you mean that person who randomly came into town with some stories about war and then left? Like, that guy? So unless I don't remember something from the chapters that I read about the peddler, I don't know. I didn't catch anything. And they left town a little bit more publicly and easily than in the book. So in the book, Rand, after discovering that Nynaeve is not there, or no, actually Nynaeve is there in the book, he brings his dad who's injured back to town and is like, Nynaeve, save my dad. And she's like, I can't save him, and like leaves. And so he goes to Moraine, who he has found out is an Aes Sedai, and he's like, please save my dad. And so she does. And Rand feels obligated to her. I think one of the things he actually said was, please help my dad. I'll do anything for you. Please just help him. And so he has this feeling of, I owe her. And after his dad is healed and wakes up and talks to his son, the dad is clearly got some knowledge of the Aes Sedai and tells him, if she says that you are in danger because the Trollix are coming here because of you, you should believe her and you should go with her. And that's what convinces Rand to go, because she wanted him to leave, and he's like, well, I'm not going to leave. And the others, we find out later, left secretly. They left notes for their families and went with her. Now, in the book, there was this moment where Moraine talks to the town and you know, when they're like, you're an Aes Sedai and that's why you were here, you know, or that's why the bad guys came here, the Trollix came here because of you, I'm sure. And she talks to them and basically, you know, sort of shuts them up in her own way by making them very proud of their history, whatever. But in the show, what they did was they had Rand, right after Moraine has healed the dad, go, the Trollix were here because of you. And I'm thinking, wow, now you look really ungrateful. So that was not a good move on the part of the show. You shouldn't have done that. You made Rand look like a jerk. So there's that. I had a couple of other things that I had problems with. This video I've recorded 2 other times, and each time I couldn't get less than an hour and a half. Who knows how long this one's going to be? Probably pretty long. But here are the other things I had problems with. Their costumes. Their costumes are bugging the hell out of me. I don't like them. The first one that bugged me was Egwene's costume when we see her being pushed off of the cliff and she climbs out of the river. You can see that the wrinkles in her dress have been stitched this way, which would have taken forever to do by hand. So unless she's really rich and had a ton of time to make this dress, or they have sewing machines, this is not the sort of thing that a peasant girl would own. So I found it unbelievable that this sort of thing is real. And I know that's a petty thing to be upset about, but the thing is, it just shows me that the person who was creating the costumes didn't put a lot of thought into what would be appropriate for these sort of characters to wear. And that bugged me a lot. And I'm not saying all the costumes bothered me, but like that one really bugged me. Then I was really bugged by Rand's Angora sweater while he's hunting. You know what? I don't really know enough about the types of weaves and knitting that would be done to create a sweater like this. But to me, it looked like it was bought at H&M. And it just kind of made me like, I don't know, maybe it was his hair. He has a very modern haircut, but I think they did that because they think that he looks more attractive this way rather than trying to create a world within its own time, which, I don't know, it bugged me. His dress or his sweater bugged me. There are so many things in the show, episode 1, that have been changed by a lot that I am, I can only imagine that fans of the books would watch that and be very turned off because they're assuming that, well, you're going to change a lot of things. And changing too much, it just, you're going to lose your original fan base because they're attached to characters who are a certain way. And if you're changing characters, that means that character no longer exists. You're going to make your audience, your pre-existing audience, the fans of the book series, are going to feel like they were tricked into being excited about this. Anyway, this video is starting to get too long, right? Oh, I didn't like the initiation ritual for the women's circle. It just seems like that's not sustainable. If all the women in the women's circle have to get shoved into the river, you would think a lot of them die. Hopefully they can all swim, but it just seems like this is not sustainable. There should be a lot fewer women than men. I did actually, okay, so let me just say this. I enjoyed seeing that there was some effort put into this show, but I was disappointed in all the things that I feel like they're changing for the sake of changing, and I see that they're probably not going to follow the books, which does make me wonder will the show be as good as the books? The books we know are great. I mean, they've been successful for how long? Apparently, the Wheel of Time was the inspiration for George R. R. Martin to write Game of Thrones. So why would you change anything? Like, you should keep this like this. And if they're changing stuff this drastically in the beginning, it probably means there are even bigger changes to come in the future down the road. Because, yeah, it's just that's the way a chain reaction works. So I don't know. I'm wary about this. Let me know what you thought about this episode, and let me know what kind of fan you are. Are you someone who never watches science fiction or fantasy shows and you tried to watch this? Are you somebody who does love science fiction and fantasy shows and you decided to watch this? Or are you a super fan of the books and you decided, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see this? So let me know what you are, what category you fall into, and how you felt about this first episode. Because my feeling is that the books, although it started a little bit slower, it built things up very nicely and created characters that we can grow to understand. Whereas the show tried to give us a lot of information about characters with backstories, so that I'm going, I don't know who to care most about. Anyway, That's all I've got for now. Please do like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. If you're feeling really generous, check out my Patreon or Ko-fi. I do prefer Ko-fi because they do not take a percentage of anything that you give to creators, whereas Patreon does, they take at least 10%. And until next time, be good to yourself.